now that, well, Iran won't agree to what they agreed to 10 years ago, I'm sure Iran wonders, if we agree to it, will the United States tear it up again and bomb our civilian infrastructure and kill school children and engage in an assassination campaign against our leadership? This is not going to be an easy negotiation, because the last negotiation that led to a control of Iran's nuclear program, the U.S. made the decision to tear it up and walk away from the deal. I think that decision by President Trump to tear up a diplomatic deal will go down in history as one of the worst decisions in the foreign policy space ever made by an American president. If you make diplomacy impossible, you tend to make war inevitable.
We heard some Republicans also speaking to journalists this morning. Ron Johnson, a senator, said that he agreed with Trump's decisions on this war, but he said that this would be, quote, a long-term project going forward. Of course, lawmakers on both sides say that they are hopeful that there's still room for further negotiations before the ceasefire ends in about 10 days' time. But definite acknowledgement there, even from Trump's own party, that this remains an open-ended conflict.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Heidi Jo Castro live for us with all the latest from Washington.
They remain hopeful that there is still a narrow window for serious negotiations before the ceasefire expires in just 10 days. But make no mistake, voices within Donald Trump's own political camp are now admitting this is not over. This is an open, unpredictable conflict. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Heidi Jo Castro highlighted growing tensions and uncertainty at the highest levels. In Islamabad, mediators are pushing hard, urging both the United States and Iran to stick to the ceasefire and avoid a dangerous escalation. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, revealed that Iran entered intense, top-level negotiations with the U.S. in good faith, calling them the most critical talks in nearly 47 years, aimed at ending the war once and for all. But just as a breakthrough seemed within reach, everything shifted. According to him, the talks were derailed by extreme demands, changing conditions, and outright obstruction. His message was clear and sharp: goodwill brings goodwill, but hostility will only fuel more conflict. Meanwhile, ordinary people are paying the highest price. In Tehran, fear is growing fast, with residents warning that fighting could erupt again at any moment, pushing the region back to
looking stressed. Really, no one slept that night. This is not a good situation for the country. This is not what our country deserves.
I feel nothing but despair and hopelessness. I would like a way for the people of Iran to be happy. Anything that makes the people of Iran happy. I don't like this feeling of uncertainty.
To discuss all this further, I'm joined now by Matthew Kronik, Vice President of the Atlantic Council, live from Washington, D.C. And from the Iranian capital is Zohreh Kharazmi. She's an associate professor at the Faculty of World Studies at the University of Tehran. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being with us here on Al Jazeera. Professor Kharazmi, let me start with you. How do you interpret this latest move by Donald Trump to blockade the Strait of Hormuz? Do you think that this can compel Iran to potentially reassess their bargaining position?
It is different aspects, I think. Number one is that it's not the first time. Historically, looking at this issue, Iranians actually remember 1953 when Dr. Mossadegh actually nationalized the Iranian oil. That time the Britain did the same. So this imperial actually exposing power and trying to dictate others what to do or not,
which depends heavily on Iranian energy supplies, has strong incentives to protect its shipping routes and could even move to escort its vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. That raises the possibility of coordination or confrontation between China and the United States. But any agreement between the two would be extremely difficult to achieve. From a practical standpoint, enforcing such a blockade is highly complex. It would not be easy for U.S. forces to identify and selectively control specific ships moving through such a busy and strategic waterway. In reality, the entire plan still appears unclear, with major questions around how it would actually be implemented. At the same time, Iran has warned that tensions could spread to the Bab el-Mandeb, suggesting the crisis may not stay limited to one area. This increases the risk of more countries getting involved. turning the situation into a broader international conflict. Matthew, let me bring you in. Given all these challenges, how realistic is this plan from the U.S. administration? Do you think Washington can genuinely enforce a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz? Or are the obstacles simply too great?
Power projecting navy, a blue water navy. It doesn't have to do this in the Strait of Hormuz. It can wait till ships are out into the Arabian Sea or nearing their port. So this can be a global effort. 50 to 70% of the Iranian government's revenue comes from oil and gas exports. So this is going to crush their revenues, and they're going to face difficult dilemmas. Do they provide subsidies to their people? If not, maybe that will result in a new uprising. Will they stop paying their security services? In which case they might change sides. So it's pretty clear that Tehran is in the difficult position here. And, the solution is pretty simple. If they want to not build nuclear weapons, like they promised to do in the NPT, if they want to stop threatening international trade, if they want to stop murdering their own civilians, I hope the professor's family wasn't affected by the thousands of Iranians that were killed by the Islamic Republic, then the solution here is pretty simple. The madmen in Tehran are the problem, and they need to come to their senses.
Professor Kharazmi, let me ask you, where, from your vantage point, do things stand when it comes to negotiations going forward between the U.S. and Iran? Once those talks stopped in Islamabad, there has been a lot of question as to where things stand right now. Is a negotiation actually ongoing? Have things stopped? Where does it go from here?
With similar pressure tactics. Because of that history,
negotiation is meaningful only the time that there is the will of listening and will of actually acting upon. And the United States indicates that it's not really serious about it, particularly from the pressure that they are taking from Israel's side. I think Israelis have an endless appetite to have endless wars, and even today there are news that the Hebrew press and TV is actually indicating that the priority of Washington is much to preserve the genocidal regime of Israel rather than its own people benefits. And during the negotiation in Islamabad, they indicated that they are still thinking that they are an empire, however, they are in decline. And this time, if this blockade in Hormuz is a contest between the resilience of the Islamic Republic and the resilience of the global markets, you see that who is losing. And I think that it won't take much time that the United States is to seize the blockade of Hormuz, because as I told you, technically they cannot control the situation, and also their aircraft carriers like the Gerald Ford, like Abraham Lincoln, that they were boasting about, and we don't know where they are actually. They are miles away from Iran. So I think that the other also destroyers and aircraft carriers would have the same doom. So with the illusion and the sort of doing a sort of Hollywood actually movie-like strategies, they cannot really act in this battleground.
Matthew, look, earlier you said that the U.S. would absolutely be able to enforce this blockade, but I want to ask you, going forward, some of the challenges that may come into play, some of the tactics involved. I mean, Iran obviously can bring a level of threat that could potentially jeopardize this mission that the U.S. now has.